Folks, the 2020 presidential campaign has started at least, pretty much in earnest. And we have pictures that a listener sent in from 2 nights ago, I guess it was. Was it 2 or 3 nights ago when Elizabeth Warren was in Iowa? And apparently, these are from listener Irma in Des Moines. People were excited to see Elizabeth Warren. I don't know if you can see that, but that is at least 2 blocks worth of, now make that 3 or 4 blocks of people lined up in Iowa to see Elizabeth Warren. And, there's a lot of excitement on the ground for Elizabeth Warren. These narratives get built. There was, people forget, but in 2014, maybe it was 2012, Elizabeth Warren was brought into, I think it was 2012, brought into a campaign for people like Claire McCaskill and others. She was an asset around the country to a lot of people. And she's obviously creating a certain amount of consternation amongst folks in the center right, and ostensibly in the, the right side of the, and by right I mean in terms of their politics, of the Democratic Party. Here is Stephen Rattner on Morning Joe. Stephen Rattner, you may recall, was in charge of the, the GM bailout, and of course also was charged by the SEC with a pay-to-play scheme involving the New York State Pension Fund back in his days as a private equity guy. And, who amongst us has not had to settle with the SEC to pay a $6.2 million fine for overstepping, some of the fudging around the edges of things.
What is a kickback, really?
Really, honestly.
More like an opportunity.
But here is Stephen Rattner on Morning Joe talking about some of the hesitation they may have. I think sometimes you show your hand a little bit too early. Like, you're supposed to hold your cards a little bit closer to your vest. But I think some people are so deep into the bubble that they really, really don't even realize what they're exposing about themselves.
So, Steve Rattner, I know that Mika and I don't usually go to political fundraisers.
Pause it for 1 second. I just need to laugh.
I knew that was a well-warranted and certain pause coming.
Right. Yeah. There we go. Let's just. All right. I'm sorry.
I don't usually go to political fundraisers for a lot of different reasons. But I'm just curious, when you hold your political fundraiser for Elizabeth Warren,
Steve,
could we just be sort of some flies on the wall? Because we really would love to be there and just see the warm embrace of Elizabeth's, the respected senator's populism.
Well, you won't be a fly on the wall, because if I hold a fundraiser for Elizabeth Warren and I go to my friends to ask them to attend, it will be a very sparse crowd, and so there will be room for you to sit right up at the head of the table next to her and enjoy the full. No, look, in all seriousness, I think everything that you've talked about and Karen wrote about Elizabeth Warren and her appeal and her passion and her populism is all true, and I think it will resonate to some degree in the Democratic Party. I would note she doesn't poll as well as some other, Bernie Sanders in particular, candidates who are espousing the same point of view, and she's trying to fix certain image issues, and we can go through all that. But the real question is, when you get to the general election, will a candidate who is so, in effect, anti-capitalism, anti-business, anti-Wall Street, anti-rich, anti a lot of things, will that prevail even against Donald Trump? And
is that it? Let's hear him waffle on a little bit more. I'm curious.
Will that prevail even against Donald Trump in a general election? And I think there are those of us in the Democratic Party, and this is not personal about Elizabeth, who I think has a lot of great personal qualities and is certainly a very devoted public servant. But is that really the type of candidate we want to put into a general election, even up against Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, of course it is. The proposals that she espouses are wildly popular. You want to put up a candidate who says we need to protect Wall Street, we need to protect the big banks, we need to protect the very wealthy in this country because they're not getting their share. Good luck to you. I mean, what's amazing about this is that he is so divorced from reality, so unaware of what the average American feels towards what's happened in our society, that he doesn't even realize that what he should be saying is that I'm not sure that Elizabeth Warren has the charisma, or that he's got it completely backwards. He's already showing his cards in a way that I think is just a fascinating revelation about how completely divorced from reality guys like this are. They don't even have the savvy to hide the fact that they're sitting there and shilling for essentially, I mean, not enough people to even fill out a neighborhood in New York City. Well, maybe in Manhattan, maybe just the island, half of Manhattan,
maybe
A few
but not-
towers.
but
yeah, I was gonna say, but not even really, because the Upper East Side's actually bigger than people think.
it's absolutely
Yeah.
stunning. I mean, there are, I just don't understand how someone can go on. And I'm not saying any candidate is above critique, but I don't understand how anyone can go on television and say those things and think that they're actually making an argument that helps themselves. I mean, because all of the people who watch Morning Joe, or not all, but a significant amount, they may already feel those things, but they should be hiding the ball. That's what the Republican Party did for decades.
Well, serious point and frivolous point. Serious point is I do think there is something specific about Morning Joe in that it's like a feedback loop, elite to elite conversation. So there's something maybe about just policing the boundaries of what's acceptable inside that specific conversation that happens on that show. Maybe,
but that's the thing. It's like
I
you don't,
understand.
You could
No, I
be
get
a
it.
little more wink, wink.
I
nudge,
understand.
nudge.
I get it. I agree. But I do think sometimes when you watch that show, the only part of that show that has any kind of public value is it's probably the closest to being in like Steve Rattner's townhouse talking
Right.
to Joe, and it's like
Yes.
this is how they think. This is what the mentality is. Frivolous point. That was a much more boring version of the Anna Navarro "Get My Love Juices Flowing" clip from the other day.
Can we play that drop? Can we get a candidate that myself and Bill Kristol will appreciate?
You know, me and Bill Kristol don't like overt racism, and we like Jawar. And so maybe if the Democrats could do that with a certain degree of class, Bill Kristol and I could be excited.
Unbelievable.
I do.
Well,
I do think he was ridiculous in the end, but I do think he had a serious point towards the beginning, which is that she does have similar politics to Bernie Sanders, but is not as compelling a candidate
That's
in
true.
the general election.
I mean, that's possible. I mean, we got, Bernie Sanders is, if you had talked about Bernie Sanders 6 months before he ever ran for office, he would be polling nowhere on a public level. Of course, he was a senator, and people were aware of him. But I think we will get a better sense of Elizabeth Warren's national appeal when she's on a national stage, and it's not because Mitch McConnell's saying, hey, you can't read Coretta Scott King's words on the Senate floor. When she gets out and she has the ability to control the narrative, that's, I think, when you judge. Bernie Sanders, what he polled before he entered the race, 6 months before he entered the race, was 0. I mean, maybe it was 3. I don't know. But
Sure.
Well,
And
he
so-
did it with a certain degree of class, is what James was
I
trying to.
am begging Democrats to please give me somebody that I can vote for.
Yeah, fair
There you
enough.
go.
I'm just
Please.
a little worried that she's going to get all of the bad parts of being like Bernie and none of the good parts. You know, like these folks like this guy are always going to say she's an anti-capitalist no matter how many times she says,
There
I'm a
is no
capitalist.
doubt in my mind that Steve Rattner will vote against Elizabeth Warren. But I suspect that if you were to take a poll of women, particularly the women who drove this last midterm election, that it's quite possible Elizabeth Warren would be at the very least competitive with Bernie Sanders.
If Rattner, if Sanders or Warren, and potentially Sherrod Brown is the nominee, Steve Rattner will write in Erskine Bowles.
There you go.
That's my
Exactly.
prediction.